the end of the 150-mile string of islands called the Florida Keys is a 2-by-4-mile island called Key West. The chain of islands run parallel to a picturesque but treacherous reef that has claimed thousands of ships as they've tried to pass between the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean. Lighthouses give mariners a fixed point of reference so they can steer a course to safely avoid running up on the reefs. The need for such a lighthouse was voiced as soon as the U.S. Navy arrived in the Keys. The first lighthouse was completed in 1826. It was right on the water near today's southernmost point. It looked like its sister lighthouses at Sand Key and Cape St. George. The top of the lighthouse provides a great view of the island and a great perspective on the island city's growth. Since the 1800s, both the island and the lighthouse have changed drastically. As soon as Florida became the 27th state of the Union in 1845, the federal government needed to protect its new assets and make its presence felt. The construction of Fort Zachary Taylor began 1/4 mile off the western shore and was easily visible from the lighthouse. In October of the following year, disaster struck Key West. A monstrous hurricane demolished many of the homes and businesses, and the seas swept across the town, carrying many of its residents away. The fury of wind and waves toppled the lighthouse itself. The current lighthouse was built inland on higher ground. Its foundation was carefully cut into hard caprock, and the walls at the base are 4 feet thick. The new lighthouse apparatus was state-of-the-art. 13 whale oil lamps, each with a 21-inch parabolic reflector. But even with this high technology in place, 500 ships wrecked on the Florida Reef that year alone. By the 1870s, Key West had become Florida's largest city. A large house across the street from the lighthouse that had been used as military housing became a convent school. A decade after its start, the convent school built a striking new structure 4 blocks up the street. The much larger building could accommodate the growing number of students for only 26 years, when the structure was nearly doubled in size. Here, the keeper's children attended school with other neighborhood children. The city continued to grow and flourish. As the number of wrecks diminished, sponging and the cigar industry had grown to fill the coffers. But in April of 1886, disaster once again struck. While the fire equipment was in New York City for repairs, a wind-driven fire swept through the downtown area. Cigar factories, banks, homes, warehouses, and dry goods stores were all reduced to cinders. It was during the next decade that many of Key West's iconic structures were built. Even the lighthouse keepers benefited from the boom. A new and much larger keeper's quarters was completed in 1887. The house was actually large enough to house the 2 families necessary to operate the light. After continuous complaints by mariners that trees and buildings obstructed their view of the lighthouse, a 20-foot extension was made to the height of the tower in 1895. As the new century approached, the ongoing unrest in Cuba intensified. While on a diplomatic mission to Havana, the battleship USS Maine exploded, killing 266 crewmen. The Key West lighthouse tender, Mangrove, was the first to arrive at the scene and evacuated the injured to Key West. Some were treated at the Marine Hospital, some at the convent. Many of the dead were buried in Key West Cemetery. Based on the inquiry held at the Custom House, Congress declared war on Spain. By winning this war against Spain, the United States first emerged as a world power. In 1909, Key West was hit directly by a very powerful hurricane. Ships were heaped on each other in the docks, and workboats were washed several blocks inland. The power lines were devastated, and several large structures, including churches, cigar factories, and the beachside social pavilion, were flattened. Once again, in 1910, the island was hit by a hurricane. Some buildings still under repair from the year before were utterly demolished, and there were new casualties. And the linemen stayed busy. Henry Flagler's railroad finally reached Key West in 1912. After a decade of planning and construction, and over $50 million, it was touted as the 8th wonder of the world. It carried passengers and freight directly to awaiting steamships with connections throughout the world. By 1915, the city's lights make it difficult to distinguish the bright, steady lantern of the lighthouse. In converting to a modern flashing system, the lighthouse became fully automated and no longer required a keeper's constant attention. And thus, the long era of Key West lighthouse keepers came to an end.